The North End is a beautiful area. It is so charming, so much fun. I'm sure you know that already if you've seen some pictures of it. I lived there for a year. In this video, we're gonna go over some pros and some cons to think about before you move to the North End. Now, I'm gonna explain these in a minute, but the pros, beautiful. Great food, not just Italian, by the way. Very central, and it's just a lot of fun. Now, for the cons, what you get is usually small. The buildings are very old. The streets and the parking situation is horrible. And then depending on where you live, it's either really quiet or crazy, chaotic busy. And it depends on the time of day, because this is like tourist central. So I'm gonna explain these and kind of give you a sense of what to expect if you're moving to the North End. Hey, welcome to the video. My name is Jacob. North End is so much fun. I lived there for a year. It was great. I just moved out to a new place. But I mean, really, there are some pros and some cons you want to think about. Really, it depends on you and what you're looking for. I will say that these are based on what it was for me, and I'll tell you where I lived, which was in the middle of Hanover Street, which is good and bad. And if you're moving to the North End, if you want some help, send us an email or send over a text. My team and I are licensed realtors here. My business partner, Richard, and I love hearing from people on YouTube. Email is the best way. Let's get in touch. Let's go from there and help you move to Boston. Okay, getting right to it. So like I said, I was there for a year. I just moved out. Yes, I know it's crazy. It's like, oh my God, the real estate agent rents, he doesn't own. I like to hop around. I like the flexibility. So I just left. It was great. Like, if you've seen pictures of the North End, freaking beautiful. Drove me crazy at times, but if you're okay with some of the negatives, it could be a great neighborhood for you. Now, the first pro of the North End is that it's central. Depends on where you're going though. So for me, it was central to everything in downtown. It's easy to get to Back Bay, Seaport, Bullfinch Triangle. I mean, you got the waterfront that's right there too. Depends on where you're going for work or for school. But if you want to be pretty close to downtown without actually living downtown, North End is one of the places you can choose. Now, the T does not go through the North End, but because you're next to downtown, there are options to choose from depending on where you live. Because if you're all the way at the end of Hanover Street, you're gonna have a longer walk to get to the T versus if you live in the middle, like I was, or if you're right next to downtown. But really, like the three that I went to a lot was State, blue and orange, Government Center, blue and green, and Haymarket, orange and green. So it's great because you have 3 T stops right there. And depending on which line you're taking, you have orange, you have green, and you have blue. And if you want red, you can walk to Park Street in probably 15 to 30 minutes, depending on where you are, or just go to Government Center or go to Haymarket and just take the green line to Park Street. There's a lot of ways to go from one line to the next because they all intersect in downtown, which is the great part of being right next to that. And it's great because if one of the stations is closed, like this past year, Haymarket was closed for a lot of the summer. I'm like, okay, cool. I'll just walk to Government Center. And if not, I'll walk to State. Like you got options to get on the T and go around Boston if you live in North End. So that was a pro for you. Now a con, the living situation is gonna be small. A lot of the apartments, a lot of the condos tend to be on the smaller side. The North End is old, it's historic, a lot of these buildings are small. And even if, I was in a 1-bedroom, if you've got a place that's, 500, 600, 700 square feet, sometimes it's just a weird layout. Like it's odd, it's kind of awkward. This wasn't my place, but I was helping someone find an apartment, and it's like the living room was like a triangle, and then you had like this hallway to get to the kitchen, then you have another hallway going off of that to get to the bedroom, and it's like you might have a 700 square foot apartment, which isn't the smallest you'll find, but it's sometimes just like an awkward layout. They're small. A lot of these are old brick walk-ups. So if you're on the 4th or the 5th floor, you're gonna have a narrow set of stairs to get up there. A lot of these places do not have elevators in the building because this is a very old neighborhood. And that's kind of the trade-off. You live in a great location next to downtown, a ton of restaurants, shops, food, coffee shops, like everything you could ask for. Location is great. but you don't always get a lot of bang for your buck with, the apartments and the condos you'll see here. Now, there are some newer buildings, there are some renovations. You could end up with a newer, updated spot, but a lot of these are tiny apartments and they're old brick walk-ups. You may not have AC or a dishwasher or in-unit laundry. So you have a lot of laundromats in the north end because if your unit doesn't have laundry, the building might not either. So you might have to walk down the street to go do laundry. But that was the case for me. And it's fine. It's not the end of the world. I'm not trying to complain. But you got to pay attention to what the hours of operation are, because for me, what happened a lot is sometimes if I'm not getting home until 7 or 8 o'clock at night, laundromat closes at 7 or 8, and it's like, well, if I don't have an hour, before they close to do laundry and stuff, it's like, well, guess I'm waiting till Saturday. It doesn't happen, wait until Sunday. That's why the drop-off option is awesome if they have it, because it just makes life a lot easier. The next pro is that it is just literally beautiful. Like, it's perfect. Like, if you see pictures, you know what I'm talking about. Like, I would walk out my front door, the views of downtown, Bullfinch Triangle are great. Like, the streets you will walk through are phenomenal. It looks like it's right out of a magazine. Like, it's a very European style. You feel like you're living in Little Italy, because that's what this is. But I mean, it's just like every, turn you make, it's like this own little side street and, a beautiful, beautiful neighborhood to be in. Like, there were so many times I just walk out my front door and I'm like, wow, like I get to live here. Like, I'm from the Midwest, so like I didn't live in a city growing up. And it's just like living there is like perfect. I loved it. That was one of my favorite parts. Just like the aesthetic of being here was like, oh my God, this is the best neighborhood. I got a lot of natural light, so if you get that, like, the views are great. It's just like a fun spot to be in. And you want to talk about views? Some of these buildings, depending on what floor you're on, will have this roof deck. Like, if you're on the top floor, you have access to the roof. That's killer. Like, that's awesome. Like, having a seating area up there, it's not going to be huge, but if you have a roof deck, that is like 100 times better to just like sit up there, look over downtown, the waterfront's right there. The next con, just the streets and the parking situation can be horrible. Like, it is not an easy neighborhood to live in and have a car if you're in the north end. So street parking itself is very difficult. It's cramped, it's packed, you gotta fight for a parking spot. And plus, the streets are just like narrow as can be. Like, I mean, even if you drive a small car, it is a tight squeeze to get around here. It's a pain. And then it gets worse in the summertime when Hanover Street, I mean, that's where all the restaurants are. They will take up, the parking spots for outdoor dining. So when that happens, I mean, same on Newbury, it's like, well, there goes like 25% of the parking spots, because now you have the same number of people living there, and then you have even fewer parking spots because of all the outdoor dining. And some of these side streets are tight corners. Like, a lot of these streets are one way too, so it's kind of like a maze if you don't know your way around. But it's like you might have like a really sharp turn on a super narrow street. Like, there is no way to make the turn without like going over the curb if you have a big car, or just like bumping into it, like going on the sidewalk a little bit, like, sorry. It is a tight squeeze in the north end. Like, my business partner, Richard, and I, like, when I was living there, he lives in Brookline. And every time we'd meet up, I'd be like, okay, like, let's do like Back Bay or somewhere in the middle, because he drives more than I do. I'm like, you do not want to come to me to meet up at a coffee shop, because like, it is not going to go well finding a parking spot. I do not recommend it. So if you can make it work without a car, that'll make your life a lot easier living in the north end. The next, if you know anything about the north end, it's the food. This is a very Italian part of town, so you have a crap ton of Italian restaurants that are awesome. Whether you're doing a dine-in or you're just doing, takeout on the weekend, because I did that a lot, like, it's great. But it's also not just Italian. So I know a lot of it's Italian, but I mean, there's sushi, there's smoothie shops, there's a bunch of coffee shops. There was one like Cambodian sandwich shop that opened right before I moved, right on Hanover. I don't know how it's Swaste. I don't know how you say it. Never heard it out loud, but like Cambodian sandwiches, bowls, you have a bunch of options for food, sandwiches, bakeries, in addition to phenomenal Italian restaurants for dinner. And if you like cooking, you got a bunch of these little markets for fresh baked bread, cheese, deli meats. Like, it is so much fun, making dinner. And it's like, just go down the street, go get some fresh baked bread, go get some deli meat, whatever you want. And you just like, everything you want is right there. Now, this is really what depends on where you live in the north end. Hanover Street is the main street going through the north end. You have Commercial Street, which goes like around the north end. But Hanover is like the main street. That is where all the restaurants are, the bakeries, the bars, like a lot of those are on Hanover. It gets packed. So that's the thing. If you live on one of the side streets or you're, further away from the restaurant scene, it's not going to be as bad for you. But I was in the middle of Hanover Street, and man, it is like tourist central on the weekends, during weeknights, around dinner time, like that rush of people, it's packed. And I mean, the sidewalks are super narrow. A lot of times, because these restaurants are kind of small, people are all over the place, like waiting outside in line, and it's just like fighting your way through crowds of people. I'm like, man, I'm just trying to walk home. And it's like, people will stand outside, like taking up the whole sidewalk. It's a lot of tourists, moseying around, not knowing where they're going. And I'm like, please just like walk a little bit faster because it's crazy. I stalk Reddit a lot just to see what other people say about stuff. And there was this one guy who was like, it's like Disneyland. It's like people are outside waiting in line. It's tons of people. It's very touristy. I'm like, yes, that is a great way of putting it because this is where everyone wants to go for dinner. If they're having a special night out or if they're in town visiting Boston, North End is where everyone goes. And it's not just the restaurants. Like it is a super historic part of town. So there's historic sites, there's museums, there's all sorts of stuff to check out. And it just depends on where you are. Usually towards the later half of the day. So if you're walking around in the mornings, it's like empty sometimes. But I mean, any weekday, around dinner and in the afternoon and evening on weekends, it's packed. It gets worse during the summertime when it's nice outside and everyone's outside dining. It's just like crowds of people and it's fun sometimes, but if that's every single day and you live there, I'm like, guys, like I'm just trying to get home. Like I'm just trying to walk to my apartment that is 3 blocks down Hanover and it's just like swarms of tourists. If you're living in the North End, you will either become more patient with how slow people walk or you will just lose like every ounce of patience for people walking slow or not knowing where they're going. That's the one thing I didn't love about it, depending on what kind of day I was having, but that's one thing you'll see about the North End. And again, like if you're on Hanover, you're gonna experience that. But if you're maybe on one of the side streets or kind of, towards the corner, it's not gonna be as bad for you, but you will probably notice it. But is it worth it? In my opinion, 100%. Hell yeah. Like the neighborhood's great, the food's awesome. Just know that it is a very busy part of town during certain hours. Like there's always something going on. There's always people out, tourists, people come to dinner. It is a busy part of town. So if that's going to drive you crazy, you might want to steer clear of it. But if you're okay with that, going in eyes wide open, North End could be a great spot for you. And like I said, if you're moving there, if you want some help with that, just send us an email. Let's get in touch. Again, that's what we're here for. My partner Richard and I would love to hear from you. Love getting to help our clients find the right spot in Boston. That is by far the best part of the job. Other than that, thank you for watching. I appreciate it. I will see you in the next video. Take care and have a wonderful day.